So when somebody says outsource an SDR or outsource sales, I always like to ask, like, what are you actually getting? Are they writing your script? Are they picking your leads? Are they getting the data? Are they verifying it? Are they getting mobiles? Are they, who's tracking the KPIs? Are they setting the KPIs? Are they setting up your CRM? There's so many things that go into it. My name is Kyle Mao. I'm the founder and CEO of Hire UA. We've placed over 1,100 people across 35 countries. I've recently hired a salesperson myself. I've used sales consultants a few times before, and to decent to mid to bad results. Like I've had a couple. And here's the thing is I feel like at the end of the day, a lot of founders want to get themselves out of sales. They consider it to be I don't want to say a low level task, but it is a grind, obviously. Outreach, prospecting, keeping up with the CRM, closing deals. It is certainly a lot of work. And it very much over time ends up feeling like you're doing the same work over and over again, as opposed to building something in your business. So I'm going to kind of break down how to actually do that, because I think the thing that a lot of founders say is, I want out of sales, but you can't just be out of sales unless you have really good systems. And it's really typically only going to be you that can actually build those, because it's hard, because it's actually just freaking hard. It's really that simple. So just imagine like you installed a brand new pool, waterfall, kids are happy, your wife's so thrilled about your new pool in your backyard. And then a dude shows up and he's selling polos. There is no world where you're going to buy a pool. It doesn't matter how good it is. And so to kind of illustrate this point, you are the only one who really knows your ICP and your customers at the end of the day. Like you can give an ICP to a sales agency and they can say, oh, we'll, scrape leads for you, but it's really only you that knows that nitty gritty of who your customer actually is and how that workflow should actually look. So, if you're fortunate enough that you can just target agencies or target homeowners, then great. Like, yes, you have very broad ICP and it might be okay. But if you need to get specific, only you can do that. Before we get into this a little bit more, the number one result on Google for this was basically a SaaS survey conducting 1,200 SaaS companies about outsourced SDRs. And I guess only 7% of them actually worked. This means when you are hiring an outsourced sales rep from a company that is selling you a seat, and it is not hiring a sales rep directly. So the first thing that always comes up is a disincentive. So typically a sales or lead gen org is going to be booking you meetings and they're going to be paid per meeting. So yes, sometimes it is great, to have an incentive like that. But at the end of the day, you don't really care how many meetings you book. You care about how much revenue is actually put in your pocket at the end of the day. That's the only metric that really matters for you. So to illustrate that point, like I said, you're never going to buy a pool if you already have a pool in your backyard. You could be the best snowmobile salesman in America, but if you're in Phoenix, like it's not going to work. You're not going to sell snowplows and snowmobiles in Phoenix, Arizona. Nobody there has snow. Every business has this problem on some level or another. So to illustrate this point, let me take my company, Hire UA, for example. So we are a remote staffing firm. So if somebody wants to hire a programmer in Silicon Valley, that's not something we actually are going to help with. If somebody wants to hire an executive assistant in Manhattan, we are not going to help with that. So that is a disqualifier, which means that we can't use data of hiring now because there's no filter for remote hiring. So we have to do a manual process of figuring out which companies are hiring, which companies are hiring remote, which companies are hiring remote outside of the US. And then, of course, there's actual filters on what we can provide on our services. So we can provide you a sales rep to make a bunch of dials. We can't provide you a salesperson who goes door to door selling pools. Every company, every point of data, everybody has this situation on some level. But most people, when they go and hire an external sales agency, say like our ICP is marketing agencies with revenue of $1 million. But there's always more nuances that is so intuitive to you that you don't think about it. And this is where I really don't understand. Like you hire an SDR through an agency, it's a seat, right? That means they plug somebody in and out. They're just giving dials. But like, what are they actually doing? Like, what part of this are they handling? So to me, outbound sales has like 8 really key components to it, and they're down here. So number one is the list. Like, where are the leads coming from? Has the data been verified? Are you getting mobile numbers? Is there a trigger that causes them to become a good prospect? Are the mobile numbers good? Do they pick up the phone? Does the company have a physical location where you can call the front desk and get past the gatekeeper? Will a sales agency build this? Probably not. Some of them will, but most are dialing like whatever you hand them. You say like, here's the data, and they're just going to start dialing. They're not going to build that verified trigger. The script, good sales agency would actually probably write this. This is the one thing on this list that I'd say people will actually take a swing at. And then multi-touch sequences. Like, so to actually get results, you can't really just spam calls. You typically are going to email, and then you're going to connect on LinkedIn, and you're going to send another message, and then you're going to make a phone call about the LinkedIn message and about the email. They're not going to build this in most cases. Like, they're going to say, here's a rep, like literally here's a rep. And like, this is the allure of it. And this is where it's like, oh, I'm going to be out of sales. I just hire an SDR through these people, and they're just going to get results. And all the time I get people that come onto sales calls, and it's like, oh, I just want to get out of sales. I need to pause this for a second. Because I actually had a sales inquiry. I thought I had an email I needed to get to there. What was I saying? So it's a seat. So they're not going to be building all of this typically. They're plugging someone into whatever you give them. And if you haven't done this, if you haven't built this, and here's the thing, as the founder, it's probably only you who can build this multi-touch sequence that really converts. It's so alluring to just get yourself out of sales. I've yet to see anyone who comes to me with a job description of just, I want out of sales, hire someone to make sales for me. Like, it's not that easy, man. It's just not. The fourth thing, the email infrastructure. You can't just blast cold email from your main domain. Are they going to set that up? Are they going to warm those up? Depending on how personalized, you may not need a sender tool like Instantly or ListKit or SmartLead. You may not need that, but like, they're not going to do any of this. The CRM, you have got all the data there. Many agencies are going to want you to start using their CRM in a lot of cases. So is that all set up? Typically not. The KPIs, like how many dials, how many emails, what counts as a conversation, they're not usually setting these kind of things up. They're usually sending the report based on the metrics they already provide their other clients. Conversion math, like how long does it actually take? And then, of course, the comp structure. The agencies are typically going to be incentivized to book calls, not to close deals. Most founders that I have talked to, they want out of sales. You can't get out of the owning of the sales. Somebody has to decide where the list is coming from. Someone has to make the call on whether the data is good. Someone has to write the script. Someone has to enforce it. Someone has to tweak it. Someone has to test it. Someone has to hold the sales rep accountable. All of this has to happen. If you as a founder, CEO want out of sales, I can tell you, you can get out of sales. It doesn't need to be you actually doing the dial grind. It doesn't need to be you sending the connection requests, but somebody's got to be building the system and the script and the process for someone else to execute. And just hiring a seat at an agency that provides sales reps, I've yet to see someone really knock it out of the park with that. That's, and obviously, like, I'm going to be fully honest here. I'm pitching my own services here. This is on our company channel. We can obviously place a sales rep in your business, but if you really look at the math, at the end of the day, if you have to still own everything, you might as well do everything here and then just hire someone internally yourself, as opposed to a specific sales agency that isn't going to do much, if any, of this, is the reality of it. So, that's just it. If you got to do all this work, which is necessary, all of this is necessary. Like, you're unlikely to get results without doing all of this stuff. So you might as well then just hire somebody yourself. Where? You could do Latin America, you can do Europe, you can do the Philippines. They all have their pluses, they all have their minuses. Latin America is probably the best, especially for more SDR and cold calling work. The time zones, the accent is something that people are familiar with. It's probably the best overall. Philippines also does have a lot of good talent in this regard. Actually, even though Hire UA started in Europe, I think it's probably one of the hardest roles to fill European-wise. Also, just a tip, don't ask them to practice your script. It's totally just a presentation at that point. Ask them to sell you something they've done before, like either something that they were really good at selling and got good results, or something they really liked selling, something they have experience with, tailor it on the fly. Um, yeah, those are kind of my thoughts on this process in general. So I've really found that it's just outbound is tricky. Like it really, really is. And you need all of these things set up properly if you want to get results. And maybe this is not true for every business. Some are simpler than others. But at the end of the day, like I said, most of this needs to somehow be built. So you might as well do it yourself. And then you might as well not, pay an agency a huge, huge premium to not do any of this and just plug a rep in, even though they say they will. So um, an overseas rep, all in 1,000 to 2,000 a month. I hate that spread. It is like a really large spread. It's obviously 2,000 is double 1,000, but that is typically like sales hires can be all over the place in regards to how much they get, and then the OTE and the total comp and the way the bonuses are structured. A lot of variability in this. So if you are looking to hire overseas, you want to check us out, go to hire-ua.com. I'll link to the blog post that goes into a little more depth as well. And I hope this video was helpful in terms of hiring sales reps or outsourcing SDRs. Cheers.